What's up, guys?
Hey, welcome to the Let's Go show.
So glad you tuned in. This episode, we are wrapping up our series on Esther.
Man, already, it's such a good story.
I know. So many twists and turns and crazy reversals. It's been incredibly entertaining.
I know there's a lot going on, but Carson, do you want to remind me what this story is about?
Yeah. Actually, if you haven't been with us so far, don't worry, because we're going to recap the whole story today.
Oh, that's very thoughtful of you, Carson.
Yeah. At its core, the story of Queen Esther shows us that God is always working for my life.
Even if we don't become queen or king?
Absolutely. Because the point is that no matter who you are, God wants to use you to accomplish his will. All of you can play a role in helping build his kingdom here on earth.
Yeah, God wants your help. I know this can sound intimidating, but it's not as complicated as you may think.
That's right. You don't need to understand everything or see the whole picture before you can start helping.
All it takes is daily obedience in any situation and a relationship aligned with his plans. It's all about the way you love God and love other people.
So, we talked about how God has a plan for us. We talked about how we can obey his plans even if we don't know everything. Then we learned that Jesus is always with us even when he may seem distant. So, what's today's lesson?
So, we have a plan, we can follow it, and know we're not alone. Those are all amazing, but sometimes we still need a little encouragement because not everything that God wants us or comfortable.
And that's not a bad thing. But how can we encourage everyone to do what God wants, even when it's hard?
We should be reminded that God protects us. And that's our main point for today. God is my protector.
Like a fire alarm saving us from a fire, or a helmet keeping us from a crash, or me saving my little brother when someone treats him wrong?
Oh, those parallels may not help.
Oh, really? I thought they were pretty fitting.
What do you guys think? What do you think it means that God is our protector?
Lately, we've been going through the story of Esther. One thing we may have noticed is that God is never actually mentioned in the book of Esther. At first, I thought this was a bit strange, but the more we learned about it, I began to realize that the author was inviting us to look for God's activity in the story. The unknown author of Esther decided that the best way to see God's work in Esther's life would be to show us the story from their human perspective, rather than telling us God's planning. Carefully, we could have missed God's work in the story of Esther. The same thing could be true in our lives. If we are not actively trying to see our story from God's perspective, we would not be able to recognize what God is protecting us from and how he is providing for all. In order to see how God is protecting and providing for us, we need to reflect back on our own lives with wisdom. Now keep in mind, if we're running too fast around a corner and we happen to trip and fall, we can't blame God for not protecting us. There are consequences for our actions. But more importantly, for a greater purpose, his purpose. God provides us with his word and his spirit, which is our source of wisdom that protects us from our sin. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 6, "Look at the birds in the air. They do not sow or reap or stow away in barns. Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they?" The home for the birds is on earth, whereas, yes, we're living on earth now and God is providing for us here on earth, we can still get hurt by our sin. Our true home is in heaven where there is no sin. With God. Once we put our faith in him, he protects us and provides for us a life with him in eternity.
What's up, everybody? I'm January, and I don't know if you know this about me, but I love softball. Now, usually we play softball with this, but today we're going to play with this. Woo! Oh, that exploded. Two in a row! Let's go! Wow, I didn't know apples exploded. That's definitely a home run. Let's watch that again. Apples were a blast, but let's switch it up a bit. Woo! Look at that orange peel. That's what I'm talking about. It's banana time. Wow. Who even likes lemons, right? Just made lemonade. When life gives you lemons, you make all. Yeah, this coconut's pretty hard. Let's see what happens. That was awesome. Oh, there's coconut pieces. Woo! Yeah! Huh! Huh! Oh, God. I missed one. I think I see a piece of coconut out there. Wow. And all the way out here. What a great time today. Well, catch you guys later.
God's story. Esther. So part of God's story is about a woman named Esther, and it goes like this. Esther was adopted by her cousin Mordecai because her parents died. She and Mordecai were Jewish, which means they were part of God's special family. Our story begins right before Esther becomes queen, and God's family gets in some serious. Now, even though Esther was Jewish, she lived in Persia, which was ruled by King Xerxes. One night, King Xerxes wanted to show off his wife, Queen Vashti, at a party. Said no. So he said Vashti could never see him again, and he needed a new queen. So the king invited all the single ladies in Persia to his palace. He decided Esther was prettiest, and she became queen. Really? But as crazy as that sounds, it was a good choice because Esther saved his life. See, one day, Mordecai heard two guards plotting to kill the king. So he told Esther, and Esther told Xerxes. Around the same time, another powerful man at the palace, Haman, got really mad at Mordecai. He didn't know Mordecai had saved the king's life, or that he was the queen's cousin. So he made a rule that all Jews must die. Like we said, he was really mad. And the king let Haman make this law because he had no idea that Mordecai or Esther were Jewish. Well, all the Jewish people were heartbroken, but Mordecai thought maybe Esther could save them. She was queen after all. Problem is, only a king was, and anybody who even spoke to the king when he didn't want to listen could die, including Esther. But she was willing to try. She said, "If I die, I die." Talk about brave. Esther visited the king. To her relief, he said, "What do you want? I'll give it to you." Esther had a plan. She invited King Xerxes and Haman to dinner. She had saved the king's life. Now she was making a special dinner for him. Xerxes liked that. He said yes. That night, the king asked Esther what she wanted. And again, Esther invited them to dinner. Haman was thrilled to be invited to dine with the king and queen, twice. But even with this special treatment, he knew he couldn't be truly happy until Mordecai was dead. So he came up with a plan to kill him the next day. But that same day, the king realized that Mordecai had never been honored for saving him. So Xerxes asked Haman how to honor someone. Haman thought the king was going to. Instead, he honored Mordecai. So Haman was already in a bad mood when he got to dinner. But his day went from bad to worse. See, Esther finally told the king that someone made a law to destroy her people. Xerxes was furious and asked, "Who dared to do such a thing?" Esther told him, it was Haman. Then the king found out that Haman wanted to kill Mordecai too. Enraged, he ordered that Haman. After that, King Xerxes told Mordecai to make a new law to save the Jewish people. They honored Mordecai and celebrated with a feast. Esther had been willing to risk her life for her people, and she ended up saving them. Another rescuer would come one day, and he would actually die to save all of God's special family. And that's the story of Esther. So, in case you missed it, here's the quick version. Esther was Jewish. Queen. Mordecai overheard a plan. He told Esther. Esther told King Xerxes. Mordecai made Haman mad. Haman made a law. Jewish people were sad. Esther was. She had a plan. She told the king about Haman. The king got rid of Haman. God's family was saved. And that's a part of God's story.
Such a good story.
It really is.
Man, use Esther to protect her people, God's chosen people.
She took the risk and confronted the king, and her bravery ended up changing the king's mind.
And as the story showed us, like God protected Esther, Jesus protects us. By dying on the cross, Jesus made a way for us to be saved from an eternity without him.
You know, there is an important thing to clarify. God's protection can come in many different ways.
How so?
Well, as you know, we live in a broken world that's full of sin.
Bad stuff still happens. And we don't know why certain things happen to some people and not others.
Yeah, we can't control that. But Jesus has overcome the world and has shown us and invited us to live differently.
You mean by living in a way by God loving him and loving people?
Exactly. So when we say God is always protecting us, it doesn't mean that nothing bad is ever going to happen, because unfortunately, sometimes bad things still happen.
True. But regardless, what we can do is in control. He gives us the wisdom to make the right decisions in life that can protect us.
Making good decisions definitely helps protect us.
However, we need to be reminded that he will be with us wherever we go, no matter how tough.
And let's be real, sometimes we're in hard circumstances because of the decisions that we make.
Like being mean to others, or by lying, or playing video games instead of studying for a test at school.
That felt personal. Talking directly to me on that one.
Am I? I don't know. But then also, sometimes things happen that we don't have any control over. But no matter what comes your way, remember that God is sovereign.
January, what does sovereign?
In a word, it means that he's in control. He's absolute. He's our king and he's our ruler. What I'm trying to say is that God is bigger than any problem in our life. And when we put our hope in him, everything else feels really simple.
We can find rest in the fact that if we put our faith in Jesus, his love protects us and saves us so that we can have life in eternity with him forever.
So in moments you're afraid or maybe doubt creeps in, ask yourself something similar to what Mordecai. Maybe I'm in this position for a reason. Because make no mistake, God always accomplishes what he sets out to do.
Nothing is too difficult for him. God cares for you and he loves you.
And as we hope you understand that whatever it is that you're going through right now, God knows.
He reigns over all, and nothing takes God by surprise. The enemy will try to make you doubt or be afraid, but in the end,
and it's through stories like Esther's where we are reminded that God always protects.